It shall be as you wish, madam, said Villefort, more especially since your wishes coincide with mine, and as soon as M. D'Épinay arrives in Paris. My dear grandmother, interrupted Valentine, consider decorum, the recent death. You would not have me marry under such sad auspices? My child, exclaimed the old lady sharply, let us hear none of the conventional objections that deter weak minds from preparing for the future. I also was married at the deathbed of my mother, and certainly I have not been less happy on that account. Still that idea of death, madam, said Villefort. Still? Always. I tell you I am going to die, do you understand? Well, before dying, I wish to see my son-in-law. I wish to tell him to make my child happy, I wish to read in his eyes whether he intends to obey me, in fact, I will know him, I will. Continued the old lady, with a fearful expression, that I may rise from the depths of my grave to find him, if he should not fulfill his duty. Madam, said Villefort, you must lay aside these exalted ideas, which almost assume the appearance of madness. The dead, once buried in their graves, rise no more. And I tell you, sir, that you are mistaken. This night I have had a fearful sleep. It seemed as though my soul were already hovering over my body, my eyes, which I tried to open, closed against my will, and what will appear impossible above all to you, sir, I saw, with my eyes shut, in the spot where you are now standing, issuing from that corner where there is a door leading into Madame Villefort's dressing room, I saw, I tell you, silently enter, a white figure. Valentine screamed. It was the fever that disturbed you, madam, said Villefort. Doubt, if you please, but I am sure of what I say. I saw a white figure, and as if to prevent my discrediting the testimony of only one of my senses, I heard my glass removed, the same which is there now on the table. Oh, dear mother, it was a dream. So little was it a dream, that I stretched my hand towards the bell, but when I did so, the shade disappeared, my maid then entered with a light. But she saw no one? Phantoms are visible to those only who ought to see them. It was the soul of my husband. Well, if my husband's soul can come to me, why should not my soul reappear to guard my granddaughter? The tie is even more direct, it seems to me. Oh, madam, said Villefort, deeply affected, in spite of himself, do not yield to those gloomy thoughts, you will long live with us, happy, loved, and honored, and we will make you forget. Never, 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 said the Marchioness. When does M. d'Épinay return? We expect him every moment. It is well. As soon as he arrives, inform me. We must be expeditious. And then I also wish to see a notary, that I may be assured that all our property returns to Valentine. Ah, grandmamma, murmured Valentine, pressing her lips on the burning brow, do you wish to kill me? Oh, how feverish you are, we must not send for a notary, but for a doctor. A doctor? Said she, shrugging her shoulders, I am not ill, I am thirsty, that is all. What are you drinking, dear grandmamma? The same as usual, my dear, my glass is there on the table, give it to me, Valentine. Valentine poured the orangeade into a glass and gave it to her grandmother with a certain degree of dread, for it was the same glass she fancied that had been touched by the spectre. The Marchioness drained the glass at a single draught, and then turned on her pillow, repeating, the notary, the notary. M. de Villefort left the room, and Valentine seated herself at the bedside of her grandmother. The poor child appeared herself to require the doctor she had recommended to her aged relative. A bright spot burned in either cheek, her respiration was short and difficult, and her pulse beat with feverish excitement. She was thinking of the despair of Maximilian, when he should be informed that Madame de Saint Méran, instead of being an ally, was unconsciously acting as his enemy. More than once she thought of revealing all to her grandmother, and she would not have hesitated a moment, if Maximilian Morel had been named Albert de Mercer or Raoul de Chateau Renaud, but Morel was of plebeian extraction, and Valentine knew how the haughty Marquise de Saint Méran despised all who were not noble. Her secret had each time been repressed when she was about to reveal it, by the sad conviction that it would be useless to do so, for, were it once discovered by her father and mother, all would be lost. Two hours passed thus. Madame de Saint Méran was in a feverish sleep, and the notary had arrived. Though his coming was announced in a very low tone, Madame de Saint Méran arose from her pillow. "The notary!" she exclaimed. "Let him come in." The notary, who was at the door, immediately entered. "Go, Valentine," said Madame de Saint Méran, "and leave me with this gentleman." "But, grandmamma—" "Leave me, go." The young girl kissed her grandmother, and left with her handkerchief to her eyes. At the door she found the valet de chambre, who told her that the doctor was waiting in the dining room. Valentine instantly ran down. The doctor was a friend of the family, and at the same time one of the cleverest men of the day, and very fond of Valentine, whose birth he had witnessed. He had himself a daughter about her age, but whose life was one continued source of anxiety and fear to him from her mother having been consumptive. "Oh," said Valentine, "we have been waiting for you with such impatience, dear M. d'Avrigny." "But, first of all, how are Madeleine and Antoinette?" Madeleine was the daughter of M. d'Avrigny, and Antoinette his niece. M. d'Avrigny smiled sadly. "Antoinette is very well," he said, "and Madeleine tolerably so." "But you sent for me, my dear child. It is not your father or Madame de Villefort who is ill. As for you, although we doctors cannot divest our patients of nerves, I fancy you have no further need of me than to recommend you not to allow your imagination to take too wide a field.